Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we've got another lift kit to do. We've got this Tahoe here, and the lift we're going to be putting on it is a rough country 6-inch lift. This will fit all 2000 to 2006 Tahoes. So first off, we've got it pulled in here in the shade on the concrete. We're gonna get the wheels chalked, get the front end up, because we'll do the front end first, and then we'll start showing you what's gonna go on here. So let's check it out. So first thing, of course, got to get it up on jack stands, get the wheels knocked off it. So James is working at that. And as said before, this is a 6-inch rough country suspension lift, and this is for 2000 to 2006 Chevy or GMC, Yukon, Tahoe, Suburban, Avalanche. They're all the same. So we got everything laid out, inventoried. It's all here. So we'll get started on that. And with this kit, you will not be able to run the factory 16-inch wheels because it is a spindle lift. So make sure you upgrade those wheels before you do this kit. Alright, we got the first two jack stands in place on the front of the frame. We'll put two behind the wheels on the frame just for added precaution, but they won't be really weight distributing at this point. So with the jack stands in place, we can knock off the front tires. So at the back of the torsion bars, you're going to want to count your threads, know how far the bolt was on it, and then also mark your key to your cross member to your torsion bar. That way they can go back exactly the way it came out. And to unload the torsion bars, you're going to need a torsion bar key. It's the only way to safely do it. If you don't have one of these, find someone you can borrow it from. Alrighty, once you get the keeper pulled out, relieve the tension off the torsion bars. Because of the age of this, it's going to take some convincing to break the hold on these torsion keys. So we'll get back to you once we get that off. Okay, so the little persuasion, torsion keys are out. Torsion bars are just sitting there now. So next step, pull out that skid plate right there. So we'll get that off next. 15. Okay, for the skid plate, it's a 15 millimeter. Alright, so we're starting on the driver's side, and the first thing we need to do is get the brakes out of the way. So we need to remove it from the spindle, unplug the ABS, and carefully place the caliper out of our way. Alright, now that we got the brakes out of the way, remove the rotor, and you'll see that the ABS up here, there's a plug. So we'll unplug that. There we go. Alright, so now that the ABS is unplugged, we can get that out of the way. And now we can pop that cap and get to the spindle nut. There you go. Now you got the spindle nut. We'll get that pulled off. Side note, the spindle nut's a 35 millimeter. But an 1 3/8 will work. Alright, next, you got an 18 millimeter for the upper ball joint. Get that out. And then a 24 for the lower. Alright, got the upper ball joint popped out of there. Now to get the lower. So we'll smack on that a little bit. Alright, once you get the upper and lower ball joints popped, then you can take this steering linkage off. Alright, now with the tie rod off there, you can undo your bolts, move it from the upper and lower control arm.
Got it.
There you go. Now the spindle's free. Now we got to take this apart so we can get the dust cover there, but we do have a new hub. So this is the new hubs. There's your part number. We'll go ahead and get the old ones so we can get the dust cover, and we'll mount the new ones into the new spindles.
No more.
And that's the part we need. Okay, so get the new hub out. Carefully undo the ABS. We'll put the old dust cover back on this. Just like so, and then you're going to set the new knuckle right on top of it. Just like so. Now you're going to use the factory nuts that you pulled out of the, or factory bolts out of the old one, but be sure you put Loctite on these. So we're going to grab some Loctite and then put it back together. Alright, so we got some Loctite on there. We'll go ahead and reinsert those and get it back together. And the torque specs for these three are 133 foot-pounds. Alright, now that the new spindle and hub are together, back to this. So next is going to be the sway bar link, getting that unhooked, and then removing the shock. Alright, next step, I'm going to take the 6 bolts off of the CV shaft. That way we can remove that and set it aside. You'll just pull that guy out, set it aside for now. Alright, with the CV axle out of the way, now we're going to take the lower A-arm down. So we need to remove that guy there and that guy over there. Now you can remove the bolts, get that A-arm out of the way. Now that's out, so repeat everything on the passenger side. Now he's got all the passenger side out. Okay, now the drive line is unhooked. So now we got to get this little cross member out. And then we can get the transaxle dropped and start doing some cutting. So now the next part is to take the transaxle down. So we need to undo the 2 bolts that hold it there, the 1 bolt that holds it there, and the 1 that holds it up in there. So be sure to support the transaxle with the jack first, and then unplug your wire harness from the transaxle so you don't risk stretching or even tearing the wires out of it. And then you'll start removing the bolts. Alright, so we got the transaxle pulled out now, and now we have to cut off this ear here to mount on the bracket for the lift. Now locate the driver's side drop down bracket. You will have to install these bushings. They're in the hardware pack. So 2 rubber bushings with an insert. And now we'll take and put that on the transaxle. Alright, so you're going to use or loosen these 3 bolts here. And then you're going to put the new lift bracket on those 3 bolts using the factory hardware. And these get torqued to 35 foot-pounds. Alright, so for this kit, the lower A-arms, you get this torsion bar relocator. So we're going to slide the sleeve in to where the original torsion bar went in. And then you got this bracket. Make sure you got the driver's side. And it is marked on the side of it, DR. Slide that on there. Slide the bolt in. And now holding that against the plate, we're going to mark because that hole needs to be drilled so that we can put a bolt in there. Now we'll pull it apart and drill it. Alright, we used a bunch of different sizes so that we didn't just hammer one drill bit at once. And we've got that drilled. Now we'll get it all put together. And that's how it'll be once it's installed. And that relocates the torsion bar. Alright, so that shows with the bracket on it. James got that nice and cleaned up. And now, going underneath with the drop down brackets.
Where did that go? There it is.
Next going to be the passenger side drop down bracket for the transaxle. So that tab will be facing towards the front of the vehicle. And you're going to use the original hardware. So on the transaxle, you're going to have to sand down these fins because of the factory bracket. That's going to sit kind of where this used to bolt into. It's got to be kind of flushed up down there. So he's going to go ahead and grind some of those fins down a little bit. Okay, now James is using the supplied hardware to bolt the transaxle back on the passenger side. On the driver's side, we use the stock hardware, so we'll get that slid in right now. Now for the front cross member, you got to mount this on for the transaxle to bolt to, and then we'll put that up into place so that we can tighten everything up. Alright, so we got the front cross member in. We've got the transaxle bolt in. And that one there in. All this is to be loose at this time. You'll tighten it up later once more stuff's together. Alright, now we've got the skid plate in place. You've got the 2 bolts here with nuts and washers. And on the back side you have self-tappers. Alright, now we got the lower A-arm in, and the hardware, do not tighten at this time.
Original hardware.
Original hardware. So now both lower A-arms are in place. Now everything up above can be tightened except for the lower control arms. So James is down there right now, starting to torque everything down. Now just creating some slack on the breather hose for the transaxle, and we've already plugged it in electronically. Next is the knuckles. So you can see with the new hub looking pretty sharp, we'll get that put in. Alright, so he's got the knuckle just sitting in there. Got the lower A-arm, upper A-arm in place, just getting the nuts started. The tie rod, it's just sitting there, nuts started. Alright, he's got the CV shaft in there. He's just putting the spacer in with the new hardware provided. Doing them cross pattern, make sure they get in there evenly. We'll get the spindle nut on. This side will be getting really close. Now at this point, it's basically like a brake job. So now we're just putting all the brakes back together, rotor, calipers, brake pads, ABS sensor, get all that back together. Alright, now we've got the adapters in place. They're loose right now, and then the new sway bar. So I'm going to get those tightened up, and if you notice how they're sitting there, that's actually how they want them to be. Alright, now we got the shocks on. All we got left is tighten up the lower A-arms, and we're done with the front. Alright, now we got the torsion bars back in place with the keys, and this is where marking your torsion bars and keys came in clutch, because you want to put those back the way you pulled them. So as you can see, we got everything back lined in. So now it's time to start working on the back. Alright, so now we need to get the jack under. We've got the front tire blocked. We'll get this in the air and on jack stands. Alright, so we got the jack stands in place. We've got most of the tension off of the rear end. Got the jack under the pumpkin with just about one pump on the jack, just to kind of keep a little bit on there until we start taking things apart. So let's get started. Okay, first thing on the rear, have to get it jacked up in the air and supported. We got to get these clips off of the track bar. This is your park brake. So we want to get that off of there so that it free hangs, and then we will unbolt the track bar from the axle. And now the track bar is unhooked. Next, you got to remove the brake line from the diff cover. That's 13 millimeter. This one's got a little age on it, so it's got a little buildup. Okay, once you get the 13 out of there, retain it for, you're going to reuse it. Next is sway bar links. We're going to undo from the frame and from the axle. So we need to get both of these on both sides out. And those are 18 millimeter. So on these sway bar links, this is an 18, but this guy in here is a 19 millimeter. You will have to hold that to be able to get this nut off, or else it'll just spin on you. Next, we're going to remove the lower shock. That's 21s on that one, and up there, and on that side. And as for the shocks, this kit says just to unbolt the bottom. But we have new shocks, so we're going to actually remove these completely out. Next, we're going to need to remove the lower control arms on both sides of the axles. There and there. And the reason being is this little lip right here. It's not going to let the axle drop far enough to get the new coils in. So you'll be able to get the old coils out, but you will be fighting the old ones. So don't skip this step. Alright, time to switch out the coil spring. So we've got the old one there, and once you lower the axle, you see it just kind of comes right out. And then we've got the new one. Now let's go ahead and place them side by side, and you could actually see there's your lift. So now let's go to getting the new one into place. And on the driver's side, we've already got that swapped out. So you got the old spring there, and you got the new spring in there. Alright, so after you get the little squeak pad back on the top, the bottom one there, that's just simply putting it in place. We already lowered the jack down, so the axle's quite a bit lower.
Yeah, it's going to play a lot nicer.
And then you just kind of sit that in there. And now we'll go back up with the jack. He'll have to hold those shocks in, or those springs in place. So it's definitely going to be easier with two people. So, you ready?
Yep, that one's still in place.
On up. We good?
Nope. I missed it.
Okay, I'll go back down a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, now that the coil springs are in, it's time to put the lower control arms back in place. So let's go ahead and get to work on those. Alright, next step, we got a drill for the new drop down bracket for the track bar. We've already got that marked. So he's going to stair step, drilling this hole first, and then we'll actually change out to next bit and then the final bit, which is a 15 by 32. Up.
There we go.
Okay, the other one's still good?
Yep.
Alrighty, so new coils are in place. And now he's got the second hole marked. You can actually see it right there. And he's going to go ahead and drill that one. Okay, now that you got both holes drilled, that one and that one, now before you do the bracket, you're going to want to hook this down. Not necessarily put it in place, but
I'm just doing that so it's better.
And then you have this sleeve that you got to put in there so that you don't crush it. And there's that one. Now you can see the two holes that you drilled. That's what's going to hold this bracket in place. So I'm going to give him a hand. Alright, now we can tighten down the track bar on the new bracket. The two smaller bolts are going to be 52 foot-pounds. We've already got those. The two large are going to be 82 foot-pounds. So that's what he's doing right now. Just getting them snugged up, and then he'll use the torque wrench.
Said you already got the torque wrench set?
Yep.
Do you have a step up?
That's 82 foot-pounds on both those larger bolts. The two smaller bolts are 52 foot-pounds. We've already got those done. Alright, for the shock relocation, you've got your brackets there with bolts. So the supplied hardware to attach it on both bottom parts, which James is doing on this side right now. And they are orientated. You'll see this little notch in the bracket. That faces in, so that's going to be the driver's side. And he's currently working the bolt in. He's already got the lower one in. Next we have the bump stop extension. So you've got these two self tappers, and you're actually going to place that here. We're going to get that marked and drilled, and when you're putting the self tappers in, make sure that you don't over tighten them and strip them out. Now it's all drilled and bolted into place. So that one's done and ready. Now the other side. Next step will be the brake line. You're going to remove this little bracket from the brake line, and you're going to put in this supplied one with using the supplied hardware, and then you're going to bolt this back to the pumpkin with the original bolt. Now with that bracket on, we can throw the bolt back into the pumpkin. Alright, for the sway bar links, use the factory hardware on the bottom and the new supplied hardware on top. Now for the shocks, like I said, we do have aftermarket shocks where the kit calls for you just to use your old ones, and go ahead and get those in place. Alright, now the shock is in place. Now we can put the tire back on. Now we got it on the ground, we can do the final torque. And there you go, the 6-inch rough country lift is done on the Tahoe. She looks great, wheels look good, good pick, Jim. So if you guys like this video, definitely give it that thumbs up. Don't forget to click the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.